Hello, so this is a quick video about some of the problems I've been having with Battlefield 4. I haven't had all the problems that people have mentioned, but I've had quite a few. So first of all, let's have a look at the single player. Now, overall the single player is quite good. The AI for your opponents is pretty good, but the AI for your squad mates is really dumb. So I've just used the spotting tool, it's like a pair of binoculars that helps you spot what's around on the level. It spots enemies and vehicles, and it also spots ammunition resupply and gadget resupply crates. Now you would think, as you've spotted all the enemies, your squad mates would be able to attack them. Nope. You then have to spot them again, which will put an X around them, and only then will your squad mates attack them. So you can see my squad mates are quite happily just sitting there at the moment, and that's because I've pretty much given up issuing them orders, because you have to pop out and make yourself pretty obvious to spot your opponents. This isn't helped by the spotting mechanic itself not working very well. It seems to randomly select which enemies you're looking at that it's going to spot. Sometimes you can't see them, sometimes you can see them, and generally it's just pretty bad. I also haven't been able to work out under what criteria this secondary spot works. Do they have to be in line of sight of the other people? Does it have to be in line of sight of me? Because I've just spotted those guys on the roof and I wasn't looking at them. I was reloading. But my teammates aren't shooting at them. I'm having to do it all, and that's the option I've gone for. I'll just kill everything and leave them to their own devices, because it's too hard to work out what they're actually doing. So as an example coming up here, where there's an enemy that's run from one side of the map to the other straight at him, and he hasn't shot at him until he's literally running a ring around him. Another problem I'm having is actually completing the single player. When I go into the single player game, it asks me if I want to replay the campaign or replay any of my missions, because I've completed the campaign. But when I go online to battle log, it shows me as only having got as far as the 6th mission, and I haven't even completed that one. So the cloud data just doesn't sync up with the single player game, and it won't acknowledge that I've finished it on the battle log. Battle log and Origin caused me another issue in single player as well, in the fact that whenever somebody came online, or if Origin disconnected for some reason, or I got a message, the game would drop out of full screen. You'd get the little Origin message box appearing in the corner of Windows, and the game would just drop out of full screen, and you would no longer have control, because the focus had been taken away by Origin itself, which is slightly inconvenient considering you have to have Origin running and you have to go through battle log to get to the game if you're online. So I'm not saying the single player version is bad. The storyline is ridiculous, but the action's quite good, and you get to roam around quite a bit more. There's a lot less hand holding, and you get to drive your own vehicles. There's none of the stupid sitting in the back of a plane missions like you got on Battlefield 3. But it has issues that distract from it. I really wish I could have avoided it, but you have to go through it to unlock some things in the multiplayer. I've never liked the single player campaigns on first person shooters. Well, not one that's been made in the last 5 or 6 years. If you think about the amount of money and resources that were pumped into the single player that could have been used on the multiplayer, which is what everybody wants Battlefield for, it would have been much better. So now we go on to what everybody buys the Battlefield series for, the multiplayer. And this has been a real pain since launch, and that's why I haven't done any videos about how my play's going and how I'm developing in the game, because it's been really frustrating to try and get a full round in. I think in full rounds in I've played about 4 or 5 hours so far, and I've barely managed to get any full rounds in. The client disconnects quite a lot. I know that happened in Battlefield 3 at the start, but it's really annoying. You don't lose your kills, and I know a lot of people are having the servers actually failing, which does mean your kills get lost. I haven't, but I have had many disconnects from the servers, and it's not my internet connection. I've got a 13 megabyte internet connection that runs fine. I have my firewall settings set up. I have my router set up for Battlefield, and I never had it in the beta. And a lot of the problems that are appearing in Battlefield 4 Live weren't in the beta. Another issue we're having is rubber banding. If you don't know what rubber banding is, it is basically a lag in the connection between the client and the server. So as you're running along, your character will freeze slightly, and then will speed up to get to where it should be. And when you see somebody else doing this, what you get is they will warp around. And so you're shooting at them at where you think they are, but they're not, and then all of a sudden they will warp to where they actually are. So the server isn't keeping the clients updated properly, and so you don't know if the person you're shooting at is actually there. Another issue is with the netcode. The netcode is what sits behind the game and communicates between the clients and the server. And netcode has to deal with things like people having different latencies and connection speeds and all that kind of stuff. What it's supposed to do is balance ping times, so it will average out somebody who's got a really horrible ping time to somebody who's got a really fast ping time, and stop the people with really fast ping times seeing things before the people with really slow ping times. Now, my ping has been running at about 15 because I've been playing on UK servers, and I'm still getting netcode problems where I will run around a corner and die from somebody who can't see me, but on their screen I still haven't run around the corner and they're shooting me, and the netcode can't handle it. And on my screen I see myself get hit, run around the corner, and then get hit a few more times and die. And it's literally just because the clients aren't in sync, because the netcode's failing. And when you can't rely on characters being where you think they are on your screen, it makes a first-person shooter quite hard to play. So I simply haven't played that much of the multiplayer yet so far, and not recorded much. Now you can see here that the screen has suddenly gone very jerky. This isn't a problem with recording, this is actually happening in-game. Don't know what causes it, don't know what it is, but every now and again the game will just jerk. The FPS hasn't dropped, it's still running at about 80 FPS, and that's while recording, but the screen just jerks, and it's everything. It must be a client issue because the game hasn't stopped, everybody's still moving, it's just the whole screen jerks. Now I don't know if that's related to the game crash problems that other people are having, and just on my machine rather than it crashing it just slows down and becomes really jerky instead of a full crash. So those are all fairly major problems if you haven't got your netcode right, if you haven't got a stable connection between the clients and the servers, and you have issues with the client crashing. Those are really major problems for a first-person shooter. There are several minor problems, like the sound will drop out on certain items. So you could be driving a vehicle and all of a sudden you'll get no engine noise. Your guns will still make noise, you'll still hear other noises, but your vehicle becomes suddenly quiet. There's an issue where if you reload your magazine with 10 bullets left in your old magazine, you just lose those 10 bullets now. So if you're like me and reload after every firefight, you find you're losing 2 or 3 magazines worth of ammo and you rapidly just run out. So you have to not reload until you're almost out or are out of ammunition in your magazine. Another gripe are the spawn points. God knows who decided where characters were going to spawn when they spawned on a flag, and this is mainly in Conquest, but you can end up just spawning right by the flag and being completely surrounded. In BF3, if you spawned on a flag, you spawned somewhere in a ring around it, but in BF4 you seem to spawn pretty much on the flag, and you can just die repeatedly trying to get a spawn. One thing that's missing from the game on launch that was in the beta is server queues. You can't go to your favourite server and join the queue if it's full. You can only join servers that have spaces in, which isn't a big deal, but it is inconvenient, and it's another sign that something has gone wrong between the release and the beta. I played the beta a lot, and the problems with the netcode and the problems with the rubber banding just weren't in it. I don't know what they've done between the beta and the live release, or what version of the game the beta was, but the beta was a far more stable and far better running game than the live version. You know, server queues worked in the beta, but now they don't work in the live version. They had some issues with client stability, but they fixed them within a couple of days. But now they're back again in the live version. The netcode in the beta version seemed to be maybe not great, but reasonable. You never had people warping around to the extent you have in the live version. I know the live version's more complicated because it's got multiple maps, but the maps shouldn't make much difference. Surely it was still using Battlelog, it was still using Origin, and it was still using the Battlefield 4 client and server. But the DICE team's message covers game crashes and freezes, but the rest of it is things like multiplayer progress lost, single player files corrupted, miscellaneous audio bugs, there's magazine bugs there, Xbox 360 missions not working, Battlefield 4 Premium Reset Stats feature not working, server queues not functioning, and promotional battle pack items not appearing in the in-game or battle log. Seriously, one of the things you're investigating is that promotional battle pack items aren't appearing in the battle log, and yet there's no mention of the netcode in there at all. There's no mention of rubber banding, there's no mention of stuttering. It's just, ooh, your shiny gun and your new camo isn't showing up properly. No, DICE will fix it eventually and it will be sorted, and hopefully, because they've transferred a lot of the operation to the server, it will be easier to patch it than it was in Battlefield 3. But it's still just frustrating. I really want to play Battlefield 4, but when you die because the game is killing you rather than your opponents, because you can't actually see what's going on properly. That's just frustrating. It drives me nuts and I just give up. You know, I die a couple of times because of rubber banding or because of the netcode and go, right, fine, I'm not playing. I'll come back tomorrow and see if they've fixed it. You know, I don't care that maybe one of my camos isn't showing up. But I do care if the game just doesn't run as a first-person shooter should, and doesn't run as well as the beta did. So those are my frustrations with the game. It's what, 5-6 days after release, there's been a few patches, and it's still driving me nuts that the basics that worked perfectly well in the beta don't work in the game release. I know there are other problems people are having with the game, such as it not running or crashing all the time, but I'm not getting those, so I'm only really talking about my experiences with Battlefield 4. I'll still carry on playing it, but at the moment I'm literally popping on for an hour, playing, working out which problems are fixed, which ones aren't. I think the ammo bug is now fixed, but I haven't been on to try that out yet. But yeah, until the netcode and the client server stability is sorted, then it's just not fun to play. So I'll keep you updated of my progress through the bugs and glitches, and the gameplay videos will start when I think the game's playing properly.